tree ordinance. It was on the last agenda, got postponed because it was such a long agenda. And of course today and the next meeting are budget. And the next meeting is going to be a very long agenda also. So I just wanted to get some feedback from the commission on when you'd like that to come back to the commission.
I'm happy to bring the tree ordinance back soon. I think we've seen it. It's gone through they've worked on it, the tree advisory board since April. So, it's been around for a while. Unless our next two meetings, as you said, are going to be long, but I don't see a reason to continue to postpone it.
I would actually like to support Mark Hagel's request. I think all of us have seen that that particular ordinance have an opportunity for more public vetting.
I haven't seen that. I don't know what you're referencing.
I assume that you have. Mr. Hagel actually, and I thought it was a letter to the commission. Randy, did you not receive a copy of that?
I thought it was.
I only saw it in the voice, quite frankly. Well, it was an open letter to the commissioners. He did not.
He did not.
It was an open letter to the commission, and of course, I believe at our last meeting, it was given to George Wiggins, and Mr. Wiggins was asked by Mr. Hagel to read the letter into the record. So I don't know, possibly if we could do that now.
We didn't take the issue up, so
oh, that
it
probably
wouldn't have been read
why.
into the record.
That's probably fine. Well, what Mr. Hagel discussed was the history and the reasoning for the ordinance that's in place and how they selected not only the compensation but also the ratio and the history that had gone into that. And I know that many people, I received about 35 emails myself relative to the ordinance requesting that we have an opportunity for maybe a community meeting like we had with Marilyn Crotty might be helpful, but I think that the tree canopy and the way we handle that is so important to the community that many people, including myself, feel very strongly that we should take a closer look at that ordinance. And so I would certainly be supportive of Mr. Hagel's request and hope that I can get some other support on the commission for that.
And I don't know what that form would look like, what that group would be in front of. Would just be an opportunity for the city manager to hear comments? I don't know. I mean, could the tree preservation board do that? I don't know what that form would be.
Okay.
Citizens obviously can assemble whenever they want to assemble to talk about whatever issues they want to talk about.
Well, I think they would like to talk to us about it, to the city about it. I think that we probably have information that we could share with the public in the form of a community meeting or a town hall meeting. I think that we possibly could respond to the questions that they have so that they know that we have heard them and we are considering their input on this. I know that the ordinance that came through the tree board, we did have one longtime member of the tree preservation board who had been instrumental in the earlier discussions of the tree ordinance that was appointed to the board, but they failed to tell him. So he wasn't even present to discuss it. I did check with some of our city staff, and our 30-year city arborist was not included in the discussion. So I think we could do better. I'm not personally saying that I think the existing ordinance is perfect. I think it could use some tweaking, but I do think that this is important enough to the community that we give it some open conversation. So I would like very much to ask the commission that we have a city meeting, whether it be a town hall meeting, whether it be a community conversation with Marilyn Crotty, where we first give the public as much information as the city has, good and bad, both sides of the discussion, and that we allow people the opportunity for input and to ask questions, and we have the right staff here to ask the questions. And then once we come up with ideas for improvement to the ordinance, possibly ask the tree board to look at it again.
Randy, does the, I'm sorry.
No.
Go ahead, Commissioner Mack.
Randy, does the tree board meet between now and our first meeting in October?
George, you know when their
they schedule a meeting for that, because if,
They only meet upon appeal requests, and there's no appeals. I mean, they could meet next week if the commission wished.
I mean, if we were going to have extended public input, my thought was that it would be before the tree board. They're the ones that wrote the ordinance or have revised the ordinance, and to me, that's the best, I mean, that is a forum where the individuals that we have charged with taking a look at it, if additional input is needed, I would love to have that happen in a forum that presents that to the tree preservation board, allow them then to vet it, and my guess is that could be done between now and hopefully our first meeting in October, which gets us past the budget and gets it on the docket in a timely manner.
Well, I'm less interested in the time frame with which it's done, and I'm more interested in that seems like the logical group. That type of a group would be discussing.
Because they're the one, I mean, again,
I mean, certainly staff could make a presentation as to what's happened, you know, why there's review, et cetera. If we're gonna have a public forum on it, that seems to be the logical place.
My problem with that is that they brought us something, and we're, in essence, by saying go back and try again, what we're saying is we don't like what you did, or there's some reason to do that, and I think we should honor what they brought us, and we should take it up and we should address it. I feel like sometimes we do continue to kick the can back to people, and, you know, we have to sooner or later take it up. So I don't have any trouble bringing it back to us to deal with it. I can't imagine that a board brought us this, and then they're gonna come back and say, now we're gonna change it. To me, that doesn't make much sense, but.
Well, it's Commissioner Sprinkle's point. I mean, that's what the ordinance process is for.
Right.
They brought us an ordinance, it was 6-0 vote, that they worked on for 6 months. And now we're gonna kick it back to them because we received, in all due respect to Mr. Hagel, because I know Mark personally, I think he's done a great job with the live tree fund, live oak tree fund. But that's what the ordinance process is for us to have that discussion. We have 2 readings of it coming forward. I'm kind of with Commissioner Sprinkle. Why would we kick it back to them? Why not just have the ordinance process proceed here and make changes if we see it?
well, I guess, Commissioner, I say Steve.
Either one works.
Either one works, I know. The thought, from my end, the thought was that, okay, we've got a lot on our, we've got some land use things, we've got a lot on our ticket between now and October. And it wasn't so much kicking it back to them per se, because yes, we're charged with eventually doing that. I think it was more an opportunity for them to hear public input prior to our hearing it, hopefully, you know, early in October, our first meeting. And if they did hear something, they can make a tweak. If they don't hear something, it stays as it is. But it seems to be a very harmless way of gathering input so that everybody has their chance to say, yes, I've spoken before the board, they've heard me, here are my concerns, and what I really don't want to do is have us up here trying to craft an ordinance and talking about whether it's a 3.5-inch caliper or a 4-inch caliper or whatever else. We ought to be voting on the thing pretty much as a whole and not trying to reconstruct it up here. So it was just.
I wouldn't be taking action to kick it back to them. I would taking action to just hold a public hearing on it. So what's proposed at this point. And why I like that idea is at least based on and I don't know what, from 8:30 last night to 10 o'clock, why this suddenly became an issue on everybody's agenda, but there were a lot of emails that were sent out. And with Save Our Trees, well, I'm not even sure that the ordinance that I've seen is not hurting anybody's trees. I don't know what has, so one of the things that I would like there to be is a public education process. So if
That's
you want to
fine.
call it an education
Workshop.
process or whatever, that's fine. If people want to comment on the ordinance, that's fine too. But I think right now there's a lot of misinformation, intentional or otherwise, or maybe people just, just the whole concept of discussing an ordinance might scare people somehow. And I think there ought to be, personally, I think it would be great to have a public forum where somebody could just have that discussion and maybe share what's in the current ordinance and what's not in the current ordinance.
Amen.
I'm not sure that's appropriate, frankly, in the city commission, because I think we're called to take an action on something specific. You know, I'd rather have the tree experts and others say what there is and isn't to like, personally.
Well, I guess my only question with that would be how, that's a bit of a slippery slope then. If we get one email telling, I mean, that we've gone through the process and we started the process. I don't have a problem with it, I'm fine with the education process, that's not, but I wonder to what end then. If we have another land swap deal, if we have a building thing come up and one email, I mean, this thing went through tree preservation for 6 months, through the tree preservation.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm intrigued by at 8:30 last night, we got, you know,
Well, but
15
because
emails
you
at the
set
last
something
night.
up, that's why.
Oh, is that why?
That's why, because.
Oh, Commissioner Cooper sent something? Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So, so not on what she sent out, I guess I don't know how to react to that.
And I also believe that Mr. Hagel sent an email out to the community, and the reason for this is that the particular ordinance that is brought back to us is an ordinance of extremes. And it's not to say that our existing ordinance didn't need work, it certainly does. But the ordinance that was on its way to the commission also represents an ordinance of extremes. And the community deserves an opportunity to have an open workshop type discussion where they can ask questions, where they can get specific answers back. And so that hopefully the members of our tree preservation board will also see how important that is to the community, and possibly they can reconsider some of their thoughts. It's not, and Steve, to be honest with you, I do think that when we have another big land swap, those sorts of things should be aired with our citizens.
And they
I don't-
were.
Especially they are.
No,
That's
but
my
what I'm
point.
saying
They
is
were
when
far
you say,
aired.
if we have another one, then people are gonna, well, I hope they do. I hope they do come and I hope they do talk to us. Because in the end, whatever we do will be a better decision if we hear from people.
I just hope the city commission, upon recommendation in 6 months of vetting and open meetings and open forums where residents can go to these things after 6 months, for us to push it back, that's my problem with it.
And it'd be nice if that was communicated, that our tree preservation board was in the middle of discussing that for 6 months, as they've done, and brought a very well thought out ordinance. And things like, and I wanna be clear on this, we're discussing who keeps the trees in the median, whether that is or isn't done. Is my understanding that was done in the last tree ordinance, am I correct? That was a statement of the last tree ordinance? The current tree ordinance that's in existence, which was done in '07, says it's the property owner's responsibility, am I correct?
I believe that was already in there, wasn't it, John?
Correct, that was in the current ordinance. So, and when was the
And
current
the
ordinance
previous-
enacted?
But it's also in the previous ordinance.
George, come on up. And it was in the previous ordinance
Yes.
before that?
Yes.
Well, the discussion of that in our city as if it's something brand new, I guess emails should have been sent out in '07 and emails should have been sent out in whenever it was done before.
Yes, sir, that provision is in the current ordinance, which was adopted in 2007, and then the predecessor ordinance to that, which was, I believe it was 2002.
So,
I mean, it was tweaked in the 2007, but it was basically the same.
so it's fascinating how citizens suddenly say something's changed when it's actually been in effect since 2002.
George, since 2002, prior to this recent commission, has the city actually implemented that requirement? I think that's the confusion on the parts of the citizens.
Well, I think the city has opted for a program that, you know, that addresses the right-of-way trees when there's emergencies or limbs hanging down and
But
things
but
like
yes,
that.
many citizens have been told it's their responsibility, and many have taken care of it.
And in the past, before Hurricane Charlie came through, the city was doing that. So there's
Before
honest,
2002, when the law changed.
understood, there's
Yeah.
honest confusion.
So let's be
on
clear, I don't know
parts
if
of
it's
our
honest or
citizens.
not, but there's
Yeah, I'm sure it
confusion.
is, sure.
So, but since 2002, the law of the city of Winter Park, for example, has been citizens will maintain their trees.
Right.
Here is my issue. We should have done this, folks, before we ever sent this team off to look at this, because now we have a group who spent time, they have been listening to people, but some reason people don't like what they brought. And so now we've sent out this notice, and all these people are up in arms and telling me that we want to get rid of the tree canopy, which is insane. Okay, insane. There is no way any of us would want to get rid of the tree canopy. So we are, that is the interpretation of what people have been writing, because I have read a bunch of them today. So what we're faced with now is people who don't have the right information, but we created it, folks. We're the ones that sent this stuff out there. So we either
Well, no, I don't
have
know
to,
that we did or didn't, Commissioner.
Well, somebody
A
did.
commissioner did. so.
but the reality is, we have a
There is
process that
nothing
we
about
own
email
up
that
here,
they're
and that
talking about.
process is for us to work through our, that's my big problem, guys, is the process we put in place. This is one more time when we're saying we don't like the process. So we want to do that, that's fine, but we got to be careful about this. We have all these groups out there working and helping us, and if they keep bringing us things back, and we decide, nope, not good enough, go try again, and that's what it feels like to me, okay? And that's my problem with it. It's not that, it's the fact that we're not honoring what a group brought us.
So let's
Commissioner,
ask,
we're liable to tell the people that brought that to us when we do meet, to go back and do it again.
We
Which is
might.
not- Which
Then
is
we
not,
should.
which is
Right.
not, which is
That's
not
our
just
job.
honoring
So,
them
you
or
know what,
anything
if it's
else,
not-
it's part of the process.
I think,
and
since there's tremendous misinformation here apparently, people since 2002 don't know the law in Winter Park, I think we should ask George or Randy to have a public forum on the trees. I think that would be fine.
Absolutely, that would be wonderful.
So, you know, they can listen, they can educate, they can have a great forum, and citizens
That would be
can,
great.
and certainly will be willing to discuss the ordinance, but I think there is a tremendous amount of misinformation, whether it's been intentionally promulgated on our city or not, I can't speak to. But I think there's a tremendous amount of disinformation based on the responses of emails that say, well, you know, like, it's all or nothing.
Right,
But that
yeah.
isn't the case at all, and even the ordinance that we've discussed, there certainly is a lot of trees being preserved, and also a lot of property rights being preserved, which I think are very, very important, almost sacred rights in our community and our state, so.
Does this, Mr. Mayor, does this require a motion of some type, or nods of heads, or what, how do we, because the action before us is to
when do we
discuss.
schedule this?
When do we do
Question
this, and
before-
I'd love to schedule that for the first.
All we're asking is when can we schedule this in terms of having the city review it?
I would
So,
like.
I would defer to the second meeting, is there anything on the second meeting in
No, I'm fine with
October?
that one too.
You know?
Right. We should be better than.
I'm thinking out. I would say let's do it in the second meeting in October, just as a
That's,
cautionary
that's
thing,
perfect.
and that gives the city staff the opportunity to, if they see fit and they think there's a lot of questions about this, or a lot of people are asking questions about what's in the ordinances and what's being proposed, I'd say they can go all night on it. I mean, I think it's great.
That's
Let's get
wonderful.
information out there, have some sort of a forum. We've got October 12th, which is a big day. I don't think they want to do it that day. It might
We're
drive.
doing everything else on
It might drive a crowd to the Cape that day, so, you know, this is an important issue and citizens want to have awareness of it. Are you comfortable with that, commissioners?
Very much so, thank you.
I think that lets us, well, I don't know that we made a decision, I'm just proposing that at this point, Commissioner. And it might be interesting to see what was sent in the email. I don't know if you make that available to us or not, but suddenly something went out that scared everybody, and I don't know that this is anything to be scared about.
It shouldn't be.
No.
I mean, it's uniformly something that this commission has said in the past, that we support the tree canopy. And so for our
Right.
citizens to get all up in arms about that, it's just like, you know, we shouldn't be doing that to them. That's the
Well, it's
way I
something the
feel.
tree preservation board brought to us too.
Right.
It's not something we actively went to them and said, bring us something that to
Yeah.
rewrite the ordinance. They came to us and said, we think there could be some modifications.
And we've had many citizens who've had trees fallen in all kinds of places who said,
Oh, yes.
I wanted to take this down, but quote, the ordinance didn't let me.
And there's no
You know,
doubt that.
Those
ordinance
citizens
needs
need to be heard throughout this process also, so.
And we heard from some of those too.
We sure did. And I think that's good, because I think if we can understand exactly the areas where the existing ordinance is failing us, we can look at those areas in addition to the other things that were looked at.
Well, as well as let our citizens know that, for example, that was done in 2007. That was an entirely different commission that asked them to maintain their trees on their property. That's not something new, that didn't happen in 2012, that happened in 2006.
So let's clarify what we're gonna have happen moving forward.
Well, all we've been asked to do is when we're gonna schedule a public hearing regarding the tree ordinance, and I'm prepared to do that.
And Mr. Mayor, if I recall correctly, you originally stated pushing it back to have the tree preservation board host that type of.
Yeah, I don't know that they have to. I'm in agreement with your argument that said they've done their work. I think right now we have citizens who need information and education. I think our staff can do that very, very well.
Great.
If the tree preservation board wants to listen in, that's their business. If we want to listen in, that's our business.
Sure.
Okay.
But, you know, there's a proposed ordinance that will come before us, and I think at this point, citizens need to get accurate information, not misinformation, not frightening information. They need to know exactly what they're up against. And I hope that the media and everybody else treats it that way and doesn't treat this as some sort of a scare, you know, when a person
it's
to get out saws and knock all the trees down, because that's not the intent of any of these ordinances.
I don't think trying to make an ordinance better is being against a tree canopy. That's absurd. I do believe that we need to look at the ordinance that's proposed and the ordinance that exists and find out what is and isn't working and try to bring something forward that would be acceptable to the majority of people. And that was the intention.
Well, the acceptability is to the majority of the commission. We're the ones that pass the laws at the end of the day.
That's right.
The charter. So
And
it
absolutely,
isn't
and we
a majority of
represent the people.
It's a majority of the 3 or 4 or 5 votes of this group.
That's
So-
right, and we
but
represent.
we're all
the
pretty
people.
smart people, and we're gonna
Yes, we
listen
are.
to you and take feedback, and that's what we do every single day. And we take accurate feedback and accurate information, and it's an informed electorate that can provide that kind of information. So my proposal is to schedule it for the second meeting in October. Let's have city staff have an open forum on our tree preservation canopy and have people answer it that are our experts. Again, there's a lot of disinformation or misinformation spreading throughout our community. I think that's the sad thing, personally.
Well, we'll need to take a look. If you're going to say that, you probably need to identify what you think the misinformation and bad information is. Because I don't think that's happened. I read Mark Hagel's publications, both of them that were published, they both appeared accurate to me. I know that the email that I sent out was accurate information.
Well, I didn't see your email, so I can't speak to that.
Okay,
But
well,
I know
then
suddenly
that's
at
not
8:30
true.
last night, there were 30 emails, or a large number of emails, that said everything from save our trees to don't destroy trees, etc. I don't know where that opinion came from in our citizenry.
Understand.
Because that's not been discussed in our,
No.
in our commission. Would you agree with me, Commissioner?
I would agree.
Yeah, I think we're
Nor
all in
in any
agreement.
of the, nor in any of the emails that I read either, so,
Well-
I mean, relative to Mark Hagel and myself.
Well, I haven't read any specifically about Mark Hagel, so I don't know what he has specifically said.
Well, he did ask to have his read, I don't know at what point he
Need a
got
motion or not, or?
I think we have enough.
Do we have 3 to say schedule it in the second meeting in October? And if the staff want to hold that meeting because they think
I'm
there's
on that.
mis or disinformation, that's up to them. Scheduling discussion of strategic plan.
Yes, sir, that's the second item. This was also on a previous agenda and got brought to the agenda, so when would the commission like for that to come back?
What are you perceiving as a discussion that's necessary?
Well, we have to finalize, we've given you some information, at the request of the commission, we brought back the strategic plan and the timeline and all of that, and a format. And so that's what the discussion's about, is still have some work to be done if that format's acceptable. Certainly, this could be a first meeting in October.
It certainly needs to be discussed. I don't know if it's acceptable yet or not.
Right, I
It
understand.
certainly needs to be discussed.
Sooner rather than later. I think we need to do this right away.
You know what we're up against. Is the first meeting in October?
That should be fine, yes.
You want to do that? And let's just schedule for an hour at that meeting and see if I get this for review.
That's fine.
That's what I would propose.
Sure.
Anything